Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss some positive news at last. The UK government and EU Commission have agreed on the details for the implementation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. The government have also, as a result, dropped the clauses from various bills that threaten to tear up the withdrawal agreement. Many implications here, but first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. First of all, if something sounds a little bit weird, that is because it is absolutely pissing it down. And I'm going to have to remove that from audio editing. And my audio editing is not that brilliant. But anyway, let's get on. 24 hours is a long time in politics, they say. And it really is this time. A day ago, I was having a go at the fact that the government were talking about good faith when they were reneging on the withdrawal agreement, and they'd only just voted yet again in Parliament to break the withdrawal agreement relating to the Northern Ireland Protocol. And here we are now. The government have actually said, oh yeah, we're fully on board with this. Of course, it's absolutely essential that the Northern Ireland Protocol be put in place and be in place for the end of the transition period. Oh, okay, good. I mean, this is actually really quite important. Normally, when I talk about government U-turns like this, I would describe it as backing down. Technically, it is, because Johnson said very explicitly that if there were no Brexit deal, he would not comply with the withdrawal agreement. He kept saying, even recently, he would be quite happy to remove these clauses if he gets his free trade agreement, but only if he gets his free trade agreement. In addition, there are hardline Brexiteers in his party who will not be happy at this turn of events. Johnson has basically stuck two fingers up at them. However, the reality is that I do not believe that Boris Johnson ever intended to go through with this. It would have meant a hard border inside Ireland. Now, just the internal management of that is something that no Prime Minister wants, not even a lunatic like Boris Johnson. Then there would have been the international condemnation. It really is this simple. We would have been international pariahs. You know, we're due to host summits next year. I don't think Boris Johnson really wanted world leaders greeting him by punching him in the face and kicking him in the balls. Besides, for all of his tough talk about being able to manage without trade deal, I think he knows he can. It will also be welcome news for the businesses and people of Northern Ireland especially. Not that it's all plain sailing still. Brexit's still happening. It still hurts the whole of the UK. And all that crap that comes with exiting the customs union still applies. Although for Northern Ireland, not so much, because they remain in the customs union. But they trade with Britain, and Britain is not in the customs union. Very messy. For example, chilled meats are still going to be a problem if we don't get that free trade agreement, because Britain will be a third country. You can't transport chilled meats from a third country to the EU. There are still severe consequences for Northern Ireland if the wider deal isn't reached this week. But it does at least mean now that there should be a process for determining, for example, which goods are deemed at risk of passing from Britain to the EU, going to the Republic of Ireland, which means there won't now need to be as many checks. Because there's now going to be a process in place, it shouldn't mean having to treat everything as at risk. The paperwork would also be reduced as well. Brexit will still be damaging, but that damage has been reduced now. There's been agreement on state aid as well. With respect to the Northern Ireland Protocol, of course, nothing wider, nothing that allows us to get the wider deal. EU inspectors are going to get their Northern Ireland office, something that the UK government categorically ruled out against all reason. Now, for those who still think that Johnson will back down in Brussels, he's having dinner with the EU Commission presidents this evening, I gather, ahead of the summit. Is he going to back down with the deal? I mean, this would give you some hope if you're sort of thinking there's a chance of that. I don't rule it out completely. Can't rule anything out completely. Whenever you try and put logic and Brexit in the same room, there's a hell of a fight. But it would be a hell of a climb down for Boris Johnson to back down and get the deal now. But this announcement, from yesterday on the government's website means that there is already a hell of a climb down. But it does remove an obstacle that would have ruled out a deal from the EU side. The EU Parliament were quite clear they would not ratify an agreement if these clauses had remained in place. The EU Parliament and member states were in no mood, of course, to agree a deal with a country who's just broken the last one mere months after signing it. It also indicates that Johnson is not completely under the control of the extremists in his party. Make no mistake, they wanted this to remain. That may also give people some hope that he's happy to agree a deal. After all, when he came back with the withdrawal agreement last year, it was almost exactly the same. He talked to leaders, backed down on all their demands, and then sold it as a great personal victory back home. The EU didn't call him out on that, just like they wouldn't call him out this time. They get the deal that they want. They get what they want. It's not their job to care if Boris Johnson lies to his own public about it. The only difference this time are those hardliners. See, they didn't like the withdrawal agreement back then either, and would have voted against it. They only publicly backed it, so they say, because Boris Johnson privately promised to bin it and cut off all ties with the EU in 2020. From their point of view, Boris Johnson only agreed the withdrawal agreement to con the British public. He had no intention of dealing with the EU, so they were told. The Brexit deal, if he does arrange it, will be more far-reaching. You'd think they would oppose that. I can't imagine there are any lies he can now tell them that would be believed. Apart from anything else, the EU are insisting on robust dispute resolution, so the UK wouldn't be able to renege on the new deal without consequences. Those consequences are likely to mean the imposition of tariffs. In other words, the tariff-free trade agreement would only remain tariff-free if we stuck to our side of the bargain. So a deal, for me, still seems unlikely. Like I said, who knows? But if you are minded to hold out hope, then this is absolutely good news towards that outcome. It absolutely gives you a reason to be hopeful. Another thing that this shows is that Boris Johnson is not as reckless as he was giving the impression to be. I cannot believe that any government would have threatened its own people with what would have hit Northern Ireland in the event that this agreement were not reached. When I say this agreement, I mean in terms of implementing the Northern Ireland Protocol, just to be clear. The Northern Ireland Protocol must be in place by the end of the transition period. The government have now confirmed that it will be. Now, remember that when Boris Johnson first made it clear that he was going to break international law, in a specific and limited way, many Conservative MPs were furious. Don't worry, he said to them. He organised a meeting, remote meeting. Don't worry, I'm just bluffing, he said. Not really sure that's how a bluff works, if you tell everyone about it. I mean, is this how poker works these days? Not really a card player. Do you show your opponents? Oh, I've got a pair of twos and a few other random things here. Oh, by the way, I'm going to pretend that I've got a royal flush so that you all fold. I don't think that's how it works. But here we are, it was a bluff. He's removed it without the EU agreeing to his deal, confirming without doubt that it was a bluff and it was a bluff that failed. One final thought, like I said, I struggle to believe that a deal will be struck this week, but it could, and this would give those hoping for it a bit of further succour. Boris Johnson has backed down by removing the clauses to the internal market bill and also promising not to put them in other bills. It's on the government website, clear as crystal. They were going to do that later today. They were going to put it in a finance bill related to taxes. That way the House of Lords couldn't get rid of it. Because putting it back into the internal market bill, that goes back to the House of Lords. The House of Lords will just take it out again. If you put it in a finance bill, it gets passed. That's all there is to it. The government statements say that there's no need for those clauses now because they've agreed the details of the implementation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. But he never said he introduced them because of dissatisfaction with those talks. Those talks, after all, were barely even reported in the mainstream media. Most people don't even know what that's about. He introduced these clauses, he said, to force the EU to agree to a free trade agreement, or we're going to stuff over Ireland. So if Boris Johnson doesn't come away with a deal this week, isn't he going to look like a clown again? He'll have backed down and not gotten what he said the bluff was all about in the first place. But then let's say he does agree a deal, so he could say he withdrew them as a sign of good faith and that the deal was struck, therefore his move was worth it. Not that this is a sign of good faith. The very fact that Johnson even contemplated this move, much less threatened it, much less actually tried to put it in place through Parliament, means that he has lost the trust of the international community. But the more I mull this over, the more it sounds like Johnson might well intend to pull off the same stunts that he did with the withdrawal agreement and come home with a deal. But then again, I remember all the things against that, and I still remain of the view that a no deal is more likely than a deal. I'll tell you what I think. If I had to plump for something, if I had to put my money on some outcome, this is what it would be. I think Boris Johnson wants a deal. I'm convinced of it. I think he's trying to play silly buggers, and I think he thinks he can get the EU to drop all the outstanding things. He still doesn't get that they can't. So I think he's going to be surprised. I think he's going to come away without a deal, and I think he's going to be genuinely surprised at this. Just to throw one out. But I don't rule out all things. Nothing is inevitable about this. But until then, until we find out, this represents, of course, the only inevitable thing about it is when you get Brexit to meet reality, you end up with a mess. And of course, Brexiteers have to change yet again what they understand about the thing that they're so certain is so great, so clear and so consistent. After all, they woke up yesterday thinking that there was going to be no customs border between Britain and Northern Ireland, and that if the EU wanted one, they were going to have to put one inside of Ireland. Today, they have to wake up thinking that this was all part of the Brexit master plan. Of course, we were always going to have a customs border inside the UK. And even though Johnson didn't get what he pretended it was there for, well, that was all down to his cunning as well. We'll worry about what the cunning was for later. Oh, and the DUP are not happy, of course. They were outraged at the withdrawal agreement because it means the EU, and more particularly the Republic of Ireland, get a say in laws that are going to govern Northern Ireland. You know, they get to decide laws that Northern Ireland will have to adopt in a way that the Northern Ireland Assembly will not. Now, in a sense, that's fair enough. I would say that's fair enough. Unfortunately, I struggle to have too much sympathy with a group of people who actively want to see an end to the Good Friday Agreement. But there we are. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.